Devastating blow. 96 CEOs revolt as Watchdog confirms government law violations, reactions, and analysis. In an unprecedented development that has shaken the corridors of power in Canada, 96 of the nation's most influential CEOs have come together in a public statement denouncing the federal government's recent actions. This revolt follows a scathing report from the Information Commissioner confirming multiple serious legal violations by government officials. The move has sent shockwaves through both political and corporate circles, raising urgent questions about transparency, public accountability, and the increasingly fragile relationship between government institutions and business leaders who demand ethical governance. The Information Commissioner's 2024 to 2025 report outlines multiple instances of government overreach and unlawful actions that contravene established legal frameworks. These violations cover a broad spectrum, including unauthorized surveillance, improper handling of sensitive data, and opaque decision-making processes that circumvent standard regulatory procedures. The report paints a troubling picture of administrative negligence and systemic oversight failures. The findings have reverberated across the nation, sparking intense debates about whether current institutional checks and balances are adequate to prevent future legal breaches. In response to the report, 96 top CEOs from Canada's largest and most influential corporations issued a joint declaration condemning the government's conduct. The statement describes these violations as unacceptable and urges immediate reforms to restore public trust and maintain corporate confidence in government institutions. These business leaders span a wide array of sectors, including technology, energy, finance, and manufacturing, reflecting the broad concern across the Canadian economy. The revolt underscores the willingness of the corporate sector to challenge political authority when governance standards are compromised. Prime Minister Mark Carney responded to the report and subsequent corporate revolt by acknowledging the government's legal shortcomings, emphasizing that officials take the allegations seriously and will cooperate fully with ongoing investigations. At the same time, Carney cautioned against jumping to conclusions before all facts are verified, calling for due process and methodical review. Opposition parties, however, have seized upon the scandal as evidence of systemic government mismanagement and lack of transparency, demanding public inquiries, structural reforms, and stricter enforcement of accountability measures to prevent further breaches. The public reaction to the revelations has been swift and intense. Across major Canadian cities, protests and demonstrations have erupted, with citizens expressing outrage over what they perceive as a breach of democratic principles and public trust. Social media platforms have become hotbeds of discussion and debate, with hashtags trending and widespread calls for accountability. News organizations have devoted significant coverage to the scandal, conducting in-depth investigative reporting to unpack the full scale of the government's violations and analyze their implications for Canada's democratic and legal systems. The scandal's implications for the business environment are profound. Corporate leaders now face uncertainty as trust between private sector decision-makers and government authorities is severely strained. Tighter regulations, more intensive oversight, and increased scrutiny from both the public and regulators may be inevitable, potentially complicating day-to-day operations and strategic planning. For the government, the fallout threatens long-term credibility, undermines public confidence, and risks destabilizing political processes at a time when institutional integrity is essential for maintaining national stability and investor confidence. The CEO's collective action highlights the critical role of corporate responsibility in contemporary governance. Businesses are increasingly held to high standards of ethical conduct, transparency, and accountability, and this revolt underscores how seriously corporate leaders take their societal responsibilities. By publicly challenging government misconduct, these CEOs are signaling that ethical governance is not solely a political obligation but a societal expectation that extends to every level of decision-making, reinforcing the importance of integrity and public accountability as cornerstones of both corporate and civic life. In the aftermath of the revelations, calls for reform have intensified across Canada. Advocates, legal experts, and civic organizations are demanding stricter government oversight, better transparency protocols, and enhanced protections for whistleblowers who expose misconduct. There is also growing pressure to restructure institutions tasked with monitoring legal compliance and enforcing accountability measures, ensuring that systemic failures are addressed comprehensively and future violations are prevented. The debate now centers on how quickly and effectively meaningful reforms can be implemented to restore trust in governance. International observers are closely monitoring the scandal, which has implications far beyond Canada's borders. Foreign governments and multinational investors are watching closely, concerned that the revelations could undermine confidence in Canada's political stability and institutional reliability. Trade partners are reevaluating their economic relationships, and global markets are attentive to how the government will respond. The stakes are high, as investor sentiment, trade negotiations, and Canada's international reputation hinge on credible reform, transparent accountability, and swift corrective action by the federal government. The path forward remains uncertain but critical. Canada's political leadership must balance swift corrective measures with thorough investigations, ensuring due process while addressing systemic failures. Rebuilding public and corporate trust will require a combination of legislative reform, strengthened oversight, and tangible accountability measures that restore confidence in both government institutions and the regulatory framework. For corporations, navigating this uncertain environment will require strategic caution, enhanced compliance efforts, and a renewed commitment to ethical governance as they maintain operations under heightened scrutiny. The revolt of 96 CEOs, combined with the confirmation of government law violations, represents a historic moment in Canadian political and corporate history. It reflects an intersection of public accountability, corporate responsibility, and civic engagement that few observers have ever witnessed on such a scale. The coming months will be critical in shaping the nation's political and corporate landscape, as leaders, regulators, and citizens alike weigh the long-term consequences of systemic failures and decide how Canada can prevent such crises in the future while preserving democratic principles and public trust. For Canadians, staying informed with trusted news, engaging in discussion, and participating in public debate is essential. How government, businesses, and citizens respond in the coming weeks will shape accountability, ethical governance, and the protection of democratic norms, defining Canada's future trajectory. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more updates.